The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. We welcome Dr. Doreen Grant-Boucher back. And
Good morning.
You were here last week, but I didn't get to be here
That's
with
right.
you, and we
That's
have
right.
to really
we
say
had
thank
fun without you because of the cute thing that you and Samantha did for my birthday.
Well, and belated happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
And I have to say that was entirely Samantha's brainchild. I was along for the ride on it. She's very talented.
I love it. I showed it to my kids. They loved it too.
We had a lot of laughs as
awesome.
She was working on it.
It was awesome.
So, and I'm glad that Nancy got to be here to share that with you, but I was chartreuse with envy. But you know, sometimes when your kid needs you, your kid needs you. So that's where I was. But thank you for being here last week, and we really want to thank Nancy for being here. But I'm here now, and we're going to have a good time this morning. For those of you who don't know Dr. Grant-Boucher, how much is it my pleasure to introduce her to you? She is, I believe, the preeminent expert in autism in any time, not just our time, in any time. And she is so gracious in how she gives to everyone, the families, to the kids. I honestly say that, you know, as an autism mom, in this journey, you meet people who are not the real deal. Let me assure you, she's the real deal.
Thank you,
and you meet people who see your kids and don't honestly see your child as a whole child. That's not Dr. Grant-Boucher. She's the first person, and honestly, your organization is the place where I felt at home, because everybody saw me, saw my child, saw us as people, and what a difference. I could wax poetic about, this has been a very big week for us, and I could wax poetic about the amazing gifts that you gave to us and to my kid.
Thank you so much.
So I'm glad that you guys are here and that you have an opportunity to ask her questions in real time. You can be writing in on any of the different formats and platforms that we're on right now. It's wonderful that she donates this hour. I do want to say that there is no expert in any field that, no matter how long they've been working, that could give individual specific advice in this format, because they don't have an opportunity to really get to know the person, see, ask questions, and evaluate, right? But if you will write in and be as specific as possible, what she can do is give you some information of a general nature that will help you to make decisions and save you some time maybe in deciding which way to go next.
Absolutely right.
So
Thank you.
so appreciate you for that. And we do have the live feature open now if people want to write in questions, but we had questions from before and they're already starting to pour in. I can't read with these glasses. I'm at that point in my life where it's like I need 7 pairs of glasses for everything
I know that.
I do. Age. The alternative is worse, right? Okay, so want to start with this question, because I thought this is a really good question. My 4-year-old is going to be starting at a new autism center full-time in Connecticut. He has been receiving home ABA through them, and they seem like a great company, but they do not allow parents to enter the autism center if other kids are there. We can't even bring our kids in. The one-on-one will come out to the car to get them. There will never be a holiday party where we're invited, etc. They say it's because of confidentiality rules, that everyone knows the children have autism, so we can't see the other kids. Is this normal? It is disconcerting to send your autistic child to a school where you can't ever enter unless all the kids are gone. They said maybe they can do a Skype where you can see only your child, but I don't like being closed out of my preschooler's school. And okay, so there is a HIPAA issue
Not really.
Okay.
So for us, I mean, I agree. Like, on our name even gives it away for us, right? Center for Autism. So I have had situations where I've had celebrity patients or parents kind of have a hard time coming into a center because their lives are all over the news. But having said that, aside from that, it is not that we are, HIPAA pertains to disclosing information that is not sort of readily or observable, right? So if a child has autism and they go to any location and they have behaviors that signify autism, that is just the whole general public knows that. So this is not really, to me, we have centers, as you know, Shannon, everywhere, and we never have this issue because all the parents allow other parents, because it's a mutual agreement amongst all the parents in that sense. So they know that by bringing their child there, another parent would possibly see their child or see them, and it's a mutual thing. They want that because they want to be able to see their own kids. There's not a single parent who doesn't want to see their child during the day or make sure that, especially with a child who has special needs, I can't imagine that there's a parent out there who says, I don't want to see what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right? So
Exactly.
it's one of those things where, I mean, I have typically developing kids who are in schools and I still wonder what goes on in their schools, right? I want to know. But with our kids, I think that it's the right of every parent. And by the way, all you have to do, all that school has to do is to get a release from all the families, which we do. So you get a release from all the families that just because of the entrance, the contact, there might be, we do even video training, as you know, so we videotape a lot of our kids, we promote it, all that sort of stuff amongst our own staff. So this is a very easy thing that center could fix if they chose to.
It's interesting because I didn't realize all that, and recently somebody had asked me a question about what did I think would be the best possible thing for autism parents in terms of parent training.
Right.
And I said, there's all this stuff that's available now that parents can get the same training that a therapist has, but what's missing is the knowledge that a therapist gets when they are in a center and they see lots of therapists working with lots of kids and see that, and over a period of time, that all these kids make progress.
Yeah.
And that if parents had an opportunity to go in for however long it took them and to see other kids getting therapy and lots of different therapists doing lots of different things with them to get the
gist of what it is.
Well, and in order that it's not, I think a lot, what happens is that people, and we're guilty of this even at Autism Live, people go online to see what good ABA looks like, and a lot of times what they see is a DTT moment. They don't see the full breadth of it. They think it's this, step one, step two. They don't see it as a natural toolkit,
right?
Where it's like, which one do we want to use for which kid in which moment for which lesson to get them to the moment where they excitedly learn the thing that they do. And I think that comes with time. A parent will see it eventually, but being able to see therapists working with different kids, I think it would calm parents' fears so much, because it's that thing that I always say to you guys about parents go, potty training. And the therapists will all go, potty training. We've cracked that code. That's not a problem.
Right.
And the parents go, you should be having anxiety when I say potty training. And the therapists go, no.
No, that's not a big deal.
Right. And once a parent's been through it, they go, potty training, it's totally doable.
Right.
But to be able to see across a spectrum, a lot of people working in a lot of different ways, I think it would ease a lot of concerns that parents have.
Absolutely. I even tell new parents to go and check out a site before they decide.
Yeah.
Because I think it gives them the opportunity to sort of see how we work with the kids, see what their child would be experiencing. So this is not good.
Okay. I'm so happy to know that. Okay, continuing on, and then we're going to take a break, but I love this one. Greetings. I just discovered this site in the last few days, and I am loving your show. Guess what? We love you back. How's that?
Yeah.
I'm especially enjoying the word, phrase, acronym of the day, jargon of the day. Don't we love that? Because I am very new to the autism community. My 4-year-old son was just diagnosed with ASD last month. I have a bunch of questions. Well, you've come to the right place. I have registered with CARD and will begin TAP, the Autism Play Program training this week. What do you suggest for discouraging the following behavior? I asked my son to throw his diaper in the trash so he can participate in the hygiene process. Last year, he started holding his hand in the garbage bucket as he placed the diaper in there. He will keep his hand there until someone tells him to take his hand out of the dirty garbage. I guess he liked the reaction he got out of us the first time he did it. And now it's just an attention-getting activity for him. I know a lot of times we're encouraged to ignore attention getters, but I can't let him keep his hand in the trash. I can't wait to hear what you say to this one.
This is such an easy fix.
Okay.
This is like a seriously easy fix. Just place a reinforcer. As soon as he puts his hand in there, just place a reinforcer outside the bucket.
Okay, because
So he'll have to drop it and get the reinforcer.
Okay. That's
Really
so easy.
simple.
That's so easy.
Yeah.
Okay, so but you know where my head went? It's funny because we were just talking about the potty training thing, that this little guy is a 4-year-old and that he has enough skills to take the diaper off and put it in the trash. And so my question is, let's do the potty training.
Absolutely.
Right?
So let's fix this, and then
Yes.
you're just starting. We won't do the potty training program until we have some rapport with him.
Yeah.
So, and he is 4, and Shannon has a really good point. It's late. Let's get this done.
Yeah.
So within about 6 months or so, we'll get him involved and do a potty training program with him, which is usually like a week max. So we'll get it done, so don't worry.
And you see the confidence with which she says that.
Oh yeah, for
because-
sure. This is going to be easy. This is like this is a child who's very aware, like he's looking around and enjoying the reaction of people freaking out because he's putting something in the trash can. That's
Right.
awesome.
They're all good signs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all you have to really do is just to have a reward for him that requires his use of his hands after.
Love it.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
this will be
love it.
fun.
All right. And so we're going to take a short break. And then when we come back, we've got a question about compliance. But don't forget, you can be writing in on the live feature or on any one of the other sites that we're on right now. We'll be right back after these messages.
Hi guys, welcome back to Smarty. We're going to be working on identifying and labeling emotions. In February of last year, I know we did something super similar, but I promise you for this project it's going to be faster and easier because part of the project you'll be printing from our Facebook page at facebook.com/autism-live. Well, here's the rest of the materials you'll be needing. Templates, scissors, crayons, and tape. The first step you're going to do is print the template from facebook.com/autism-live. I have them right here, and I printed them double-sided. So now that I have all the pages printed out, I'm going to hand it off to my kiddo to have them color it in. So while they're coloring the face, you can of course work on identifying colors, labeling features, staying in the lines, and of course working on that pincer grasp. Once your child has finished coloring all the faces, you're going to take the pieces of paper and fold them in half. Once I have all the pages folded in half, I'm going to layer them together like a booklet. Now that I have them like this, I'm going to do is take my tape inside and kind of tape it together so they're bound together. If you have a stapler, you can do that too. Alright, now that this has been taped together, it looks like I have a book. So we're almost done with the project. All we need to do now is cut along the dotted line. Keep in mind, don't go all the way across to the edge or else it's going to be cut into thirds and it's not going to be a solid book anymore. The other thing in mind is, your kid can work on following a straight line while cutting, and if they can't do that, help them out. Alright, my booklet now has been cut up, and as you can see, I can now take a tab and flip it, and it'll change the look of the face. And what you can do is, ask your child how the emotion of the face changes based on what parts of the features you changed. Well, I hope you had fun doing this activity with me, and until next time, craft on, guys.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Hey, I I'm Candace Cameron Bray.
Tom Bergeron.
You're watching Autism Live.
And you're watching Autism Live.
And you're watching Autism Live.
You're watching Autism Live.
Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. We're here with Dr. Doreen Grampiche, and she is answering your questions in real time. Before the break, I promised that we were going to go to a question about compliance. This is one of my favorite topics.
Okay.
It really is. So how do I teach my son basic compliance? My son is 3, and I can't think of any instruction he follows. He's difficult to take to the park since he just runs away and doesn't respond to stop. I really want to take him out, but I am worried for his safety. And I remember these days. I remember the point. See, my son, I don't know for you, but my son regressed into autism, and there came a point when I could not walk with him down a sidewalk. If I tried to hold his hand, he would lean over until he was sideways and laying on the ground. And then if I let go of his hand, he would run. And he would run towards traffic.
Yeah.
And I was terrified. And I always say when I do talks that eventually we started to look like vampires because we didn't leave the house. I didn't have a backyard for him to be in. We were in a condo. And so we didn't go to the park. And my life got really, really small, and his life got really small. And at a point, I thought, this will never change. And I was trying to teach him things, but it wasn't happening. And it was scary because you start to lose hope. And then when you learn about how to get compliance and when you see that it's possible, this is why it's one of my favorite topics, because it changes the whole dynamic.
Right.
So talk to us a little bit about compliance.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Why do you think it wasn't happening before? What was the biggest thing that changed when you started an ABA program?
I changed my behavior.
Okay. Okay. And how?
Well, I first of all, because there was the thought in my head, and I hate saying this because it was the worst moment when I thought my son wasn't teachable. That thought had crossed my mind, and I gave up a little bit in that moment, right? But when I was trying to get him to comply, I was coming at it from a mindset of what I thought it was going to take, which wasn't the thing, and there was fear because he wouldn't do it, right?
Okay.
And I will tell you honestly too, the other side of this is once I learned what CARD taught me, there came a moment where everything got easier. And I remember my husband coming home from work one day and in tears looking at me and saying, I don't get it. How come now when you ask him to come here, he comes? Peter asks him to come and he comes. And every other therapist asks him, and he says, and I ask him to come and he's someplace else. And I said, well, you better learn this. There is stuff to learn and you better learn it. You better pay attention in clinic.
Right.
Wasn't my finest wife moment.
Right.
But interesting that then he saw that we were able to, and he was like, what's the secret sauce here?
Right. Okay, great. Awesome. Thank you. So as you were saying this, I started writing notes on, I think there's 4 real important components that need to change for parents. One is, it starts with what you're thinking. It's your own belief system, right? So if you believe that things are not going to get better, they're not going to get better. Period. If you believe that your child is going to significantly improve, they're significantly going to improve. It's just that simple. So that's first. It has to do with your belief system. And the older the child is, I believe that what happens with our parents is they just become helpless, hopeless. They lose all hope because it's now 3 years, 4 years, 5 years where the child is getting more and more out of control, and they really start to believe this is an unteachable child and I cannot do anything about it. And learned helplessness and hopelessness always accompanies fear. So the second step is the courage to do something about it. So one is change your belief system. Second is be brave enough to do something about it, right? So that's a big one. Because fear basically makes us freeze, and there's no question about it. Anything that is difficult, we initially fear. So that's the second thing. So those are things you can do easily. The third thing is the technique.
Yeah.
It's learning the content. And the technique is very easy, and I'm going to talk about it in a minute. And then The fourth, which is also, I think, very important, is practice.
Yeah.
Because what we do is we learn these techniques and we try to implement them in the course of life. And the big difference with what we do here as ABA therapists and what you do as parents is that we're not doing it in the course of life. We're doing it as a specific learning activity. So it's not when you're out at the supermarket or something like that initially. It's a specific activity that is focused on teaching, do not run away. And it's not when you're out. It's focused on that one thing. So everything in the environment is modified to make that one thing happen, as opposed to you thinking, oh, I can just teach him not to freak out when we're at a supermarket. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
You focus on it as opposed to try to deal with it while you're dealing with 500 other things.
Yes.
So that's the fourth thing. So the four things are: change your belief system, have the courage to try, learn the techniques, and then actually work on it, practice it as its own thing. Now
Not in the moment that it's happening, outside of that.
Exactly.
Yes.
So let's talk about the technique, because all we're asking for here, and I try to go general because it'll help a lot of other people that are listening as well. It doesn't matter what the behavior is. It could be running away, it could be hitting, it could be whatever it is. It is always the same thing. You change your behavior by changing the antecedents and changing the consequences. Those two things is how you change the behavior. How do we know how to modify the antecedent and the consequence? We have to identify the function of the behavior. What is the function of the behavior? It's why the behavior happens. It's the reason for the behavior to happen. He's running away for a reason. Mm-hmm. Now, the reasons are pretty complicated in a running away type situation. Some things are very easy to identify, the functions. And, to simplify the functions down really to their basics, we're always talking about you always want to gain access to something or avoid something. That's it. Running away is probably a combination of the two. He wants to avoid having to walk calmly next to you because he is a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
And 3-year-olds generally are much more hyper than adults. So he's trying to avoid that. And then he's trying to gain access to the stimulation of running fast, which is a fun thing for 3-year-olds. Yeah. So it's fine. It's not a big deal. But what you have to do is you have to prevent him from doing the inappropriate behavior and give him a different out. Now that's always the case, whether we're trying to teach a child not to hit someone to gain access to a toy. You block the hitting and you teach them to ask for the toy. You want to teach a child not to tantrum in order to get out of a classroom. You don't take them out of the classroom when they tantrum, but you teach them to ask for a break, and then so you always do that. You always take away what they achieve by doing the bad behavior, the challenging behavior, and you give them other ways to ask for that same function, the same reason. So with a child who's running away, you don't take them out and you don't give them the opportunity to run away. And the best thing for that, honestly, is to use one of these holsters. There's a million different types of holsters that you begin with. So the first thing is always safety, and there's a hierarchy of sort of things that we worry about. Safety is the absolute first, right? So there are these really cool holsters. They look like a belt. It's a belt that you attach to your belt and to the child around their waist. It doesn't even look all that odd but it is secure, and the child cannot run away from you. It's really that simple. You start with that and you purchase that. You can use a rope. It doesn't matter, but you attach yourself to the child, and you do it pretty close to begin with. And as the child learns that there is no escaping this, you gradually increase the distance so that the child now has more and more freedom, and you reward the child for staying with you even though the rope is loose. So the child could potentially now run away, but they won't, because the reward is to stay there. And you don't practice this on a dangerous street. You practice it in a backyard or in an empty parking lot where there are no cars. And then you eventually, once the child has learned to stay next to you, without a rope, that's when you start going to a real life situation and you're still being very cautious about it. So this is called shaping. Now, shaping is a procedure that is used in ABA all the time in a million different ways. And I don't want to, like, I'm not sure if running away is one of the behaviors that is very specifically taught when you look at IBT, but you should probably go to our IBT website, Institute for Behavior Training, and their website is ibehavioraltraining.com, and you should go there because you can teach yourself not just this technique that I told you, but every behavioral technique, all the different ways to modify consequences and antecedents and to change behavior. Shaping is one way to do it. There's training, there's just increasing reinforcer, there's modifying antecedent, there's prompting. There's a million things that we do.
It's that toolkit that I was just mentioning. There's a toolkit, and you decide which tool in which instance. And
exactly right. And so it's really the best thing you can do, because this is not the first and it's not going to be the last behavior you deal with. You're going to have a bunch of these, and you're going to want to have tools, as Shannon said, that you can just go to immediately. When I see a situation with a child, whether it's my own child or another child, it doesn't matter. I instantly know how to deal with it because I know all these tools, right? And that is the gift of behavior analysis. It's not just for dealing with challenging behavior. It's for everything. Like you literally can manage your neighbor's anger with this, and you can deal with the postman who's never on time, and you learn how to modify the behavior of everyone in your environment through the use of reinforcers and removal of reinforcers. And so that is really a very important thing, and I think it would be beneficial for any parents to just learn the behavioral techniques because they're extremely useful.
It's life-changing. It's life-changing. And I do think that there's something in this environment that we live in and the way that we've all been raised where we have left out, it's like we've forgotten culturally the whole idea of reinforcing other people. Right. It feels weird. It doesn't feel, for a lot of people, when we talk about reinforcing a child for something or reinforcing someone else, they're like, but it sounds weird when I say it. It sounds false. It sounds fake. And that's so funny to me because I remember feeling that way. Right. But just this morning on the drive-in, I was in my car, and at one point I was at a stoplight, and there was this huge dog hanging out the window of the car next to me, and I can't stand that. I had to talk to the dog, right? You know me. And so I rolled down my window, and I was like, well, aren't you the cutest little thing ever? And now I'm sure that the man who was driving the dog thought it was me trying to come on to him, which was I was into the dog. And so I was having a whole conversation with the dog, and he said, oh, this is Ralph. This is Wreck-It Ralph. And Ralph, you can have him. Cute dog. And I was like, I'll take him, bring him right over here. And he was like, oh, he never comes when you call him. He just doesn't. And I kind of looked at him and was like, oh. And I said, that's because you have to give him something when he comes.
Yeah.
And you got to reinforce him. And the guy was like, no, you can call him forever and he won't come. He runs the other way. And I thought, oh, he just doesn't get it.
That's so funny, yeah.
I have a dog who is a crazy dog, and she can be outside barking whatever. Right. But she knows I go to the door and all I have to do is say, Daisy, and she comes at a clip because she knows she's going to get something. Right. Even though the behavior that she was doing outside, a lot of people go, you shouldn't be outside barking. Instead of giving the reinforcer. We've been trained to do that. And we do that with our dogs. We do that with our kids. We want to school them instead of saying, thank you for coming.
Absolutely right.
Good job coming.
Absolutely right. So, and then many aspects of what you're just saying is also that we also think that we can't actually train our kids. Like, I don't know how to explain this. Like, people are very averse to ABA because they think sometimes that it's like animal training.
Exactly.
Guess what? It is like animal training. We are animals.
It works.
All of us. We're all animals of some type or another. It changes human behavior. It's the same procedures and techniques that we use to change animal behavior. All we're doing is we're simplifying things down to their very, very core. And so, and another part of this, Shannon, is that just society as a whole has moved away from rules. Like, we're much more with teens, with our children in particular. The rules have, a lot of parents don't choose to implement rules of society. They choose to kind of let their children access all reinforcers whenever they want.
Yeah.
And that's just a way of saying we spoil our kids. We do. We let them have whatever they want to do whenever they want to, and then we question why they come into the world and as teens they start to do crazy things. Because guess what? By the time they're teens, they're bored with it. They've had access already. They're satiated to all the reinforcers. They just want higher and higher levels of reinforcers. So it's really important when your child is young to actually give your child something to strive for and to limit their access to free reinforcers and allow them to learn. Let me tell you, one of the most amazing things for my kids, I think, and you know, my oldest daughter, you know, all of my kids, but like when you look at them, they really, achievement of some goal in life is very meaningful to them, is in itself very rewarding to them. Yeah. And that's something I think that they've learned over time. And I think for our kids, when our kids get diagnosed, one of the things that parents do often, I find, is that they have so much fear and empathy and just sympathy, and they don't know enough about autism, that all demands, all expectations of the child are removed. Yeah. Like we think, oh, the poor child has autism, therefore I should let him get away with everything. Yeah. And that's not the case at all. Our kids with autism have absolutely the capability to learn. In many cases, they're extremely intelligent children, and they're just learning a different way. And the language of ABA is what helps you communicate with your child. But please don't fear placing demands on your child, rewarding them when they do good. Please don't fear setting the correct contingencies on the child. Don't allow the child to just go at it and have everything because you feel bad about the autism. Yep. The autism is a transitory condition. To me, it's not something that is going to rule them forever. You're just teaching. It's just harder for them to learn the typical way. So you need to modify the way you teach so that they learn.
Right. So to recap, iBehavioral training, where you can go and take a class really at your own speed about compliance, and there's every other topic that's there, ibehavioraltraining.com. We have tons of videos on compliance on the show because, as I said, it's one of my favorite things to talk about because it's immediately life-changing. You want to change your life today, start to get the compliance piece, and your life will get easier, and you will enjoy your child more. They will enjoy you more. And then you will be like, what else can we do? So it's a pretty fabulous
And actually,
thing.
just very quickly before we let this one question go, because mom or parent says, my son's 3 and I can't think of any instructions he follows. By the way, I wouldn't start working on running away as my first instruction. I would work on really basic things like stand up and sit down and come here. And those are much more easily controllable by a team of people. And you're doing it in the safety of your home, and the child learns the connection between complying with an instruction you give and receiving a reward. That's the most important thing in the beginning of ABA, is for the child to understand, oh, when I do what they ask, I get something really good out of it. You establish that relationship before you start doing things that require more shaping, like running away, stopping the running away. You start with something as basic as sit, and you're prompting the child and giving him a reward. And then he starts to realize, oh, when they say sit and I do this, I get a cookie or something.
And it's not hard for me to sit, so I'm happy to do it.
Exactly,
you know?
exactly.
And I just want to say, too, the A Word, not the British television show, the one on our channel. Go to the A Word, and you will see Jack Riley with real therapists, real boy on the spectrum, that they start to work on the stand-up and come here and sit down with him, and then they work up to the point where they're having difficulties with him outside because he doesn't want to hold hands and wants to run into traffic, and if mom asks him to hold hands, he tries to bite her arm, and you watch them work through that, and that behavior goes poof and away. Life gets better. Compliance is a good thing. All right, we've got so many questions. I got to move on here.
Great.
And of course my screen just went away. Sorry.
Can I just, as you're doing that, answer this quickly? One question that says, my son is is 4 and only wants to make a long line with his toys and then look at them from different angles.
Yes.
He gets very upset if you move any of the toys. How do I get him to play the right way with them? So this is, before we get into the concept of how do you teach appropriate play, which is a much more advanced process, and I just want to make sure you realize that those are 2 pretty significant symptoms of autism, and you should really he should be receiving a full ABA program, a comprehensive ABA program, which essentially means a 40-hour-a-week one-to-one intervention program where all this kind of stuff is part of the rigidity and what we call stereotypic repetitive behaviors of autism, and the way that they are replaced, the way that they're eliminated is by replacement. So in his case, you just need to unfortunately block it, which is going to evoke a lot of other behaviors, and I'm not sure that I would want you to do that unless you're in the middle of a program. Because so as you start to block these types of obsessive compulsive behaviors, the child will try to replace them with other types of behaviors, and he will get very frustrated because they're very obsessive in nature, and they'll distract from his thinking because he'll constantly be thinking, how do I line things up? But as you start to teach him other things and occupy his time with other things, then these things are blocked. So that's the way to deal with them.
They also cover this in the A word as well, where
Yes.
Jack Riley likes to lay on his side and line things up. So check that out as well. All right, we have some massive questions that we would love to take hours to explain, but we don't have time. But
Let's do our best.
Okay, so Jessica on Facebook wants to know, how do you potty train someone who is nonverbal?
So it doesn't matter. We don't need verbal for potty training. The whole potty training procedure, and I think we actually have a few videos on it that we can play for you, but we generally follow some modified version of the Fox and Azrin potty training procedure, which is not a very complicated procedure. It doesn't require verbalization because we use pictures as well where the child can indicate it's time to go. But what we do is we basically start with the child on the toilet more than off the toilet, and we reinforce voiding. So you're giving a lot of reinforcement for the child to pee, and then you will gradually, with increasing intervals, remove the child from the toilet so that now they're off the toilet, but you make sure that they don't have accidents. Therefore, you kind of get them back on the toilet every 15 minutes, and you then gradually start to increase that period of time. I don't want to make it sound like it's easier, that easy, because there's very specific timing to it. But I believe we have this on so many different
We
places.
actually have a video with Dr. Sienna Greener-Wooten where she goes and we
Through
play
the
it
whole
from
thing.
time to time. And we've done lots of shows on it. I think I've got a blog on the Skills website right now about potty training, and you can get the protocol for it at Skills for Autism, FOR autism.com. But you know, I know it feels like when it's a nonverbal child, it's going to be vastly different. It really
isn't at all.
Okay, then we have another question from Facebook. What should I do when he's constantly hitting me? This is not from the same parent, by the way. What should I do when he's constantly hitting me and my husband to get his way? We don't have an age on the child.
That's great. So he is getting hit. So let's analyze this together. So the behavior that we want to change is hitting. And we already know that the function is to get his way. So I don't know what that exactly means. It could be that he wants to have an activity, or he wants to avoid an activity, whatever it is.
Have you get off the phone.
Get off, or get an object, whatever it is. But get his way is a good way of putting it, because, and so what I assume happens is he gets his way. He gets his way. So what you do is, you don't allow, so let's just, before we go there, I want to let the audience kind of figure this out on their own. So I hit and I get my way. So what's happening is my hitting behavior is being rewarded, because every time I get my way, I've accomplished what I wanted, right? So that hitting behavior will continue, because always remember one thing, this makes life a lot easier. Any challenging behavior is communication. Any challenging behavior, when it occurs, imagine what the child would be saying if they could say it. Okay, so when a child hits, the vocal of that would be, I want to get my way. Whatever it is, I want to get out of here. I want that object, whatever it is, right? If they could vocalize, that's what they'd be doing if they didn't hit. Now, what you want to do, once you know that, you realize, oh, it shouldn't work. I should prevent the child from getting their way. Because what I'm trying to teach the child is, this was not a very good form of communication. Hitting is not what you want to do. You can get your way, but in order to get your way, you have to ask.
Right.
So what you do is you prevent the child from getting their way when they hit, and instead you teach the child to vocalize what they want, and you give it to them when they vocalize it. Now, those are two simple, it sounds very simple, but you kind of have to do extinction on its own. So you have to prevent the child first from hitting, and then you have to teach them separately a different activity, and then this is called like differential reinforcement, because what you're doing is you're reinforcing another behavior in order to get their way. So this is a simple thing that you learn in ABA, but essentially the short answer is don't let him get his way.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and if you want to give him breaks, or if he wants to have access to an object or whatever it is, separately teach him how to get do an appropriate behavior to get that.
Yeah, a lot of parents boil it down to, when something's happening you don't like, you say, what is it that the child wants? Don't give it to them.
Exactly. Exactly.
Don't give them that. But when they do things that you do want, give them everything that they want.
And teach them how to do the things that you
Exactly.
do want. Prompt, model, teach them how to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. Susanna on YouTube wants to know, how do you teach kids with ASD tenses, past, present, and future?
Okay.
Great question.
Very good question. And we usually start with just present tense, and there's a series of programs. You know, in my head, it immediately turns into about 12 lessons.
Right.
And then I'm thinking, I shouldn't get into this because this is going to go on for a while. But essentially, you start with present tense, and then we teach past tense first, and then we teach future tense. But having said that, we will start with very basic actions where the child is identifying actions on a picture, and it's receptively done first. So it's things like touch, running, point to, jumping, show me, you know, so it's all on pictures. Then it goes to three-dimensional, so we have the child actually doing some of these things. So it's like jump. And that lesson, by the way, the clap, jump, telling the child actions, follows another lesson, which is imitation. See, I can't, in my head, it's all a million lessons that are like connected to each other. So once you have the child actually doing these receptively, then you have to do expressive present tense. So it's stuff like, what am I doing? And you do this, and the child says clapping, and so on. And this lesson obviously has to follow a verbal imitation lesson, because they have to have enough ability to give speech. So then you have the child identifying both receptively and expressively present tense. Then you will go to past tense, because then you will do things like you'll show a film and say, or do this and say, what did I do?
Right.
And then the child will say, you clapped. And then you rotate that with, what am I doing? You are clapping. And that's how they learn the difference between present and past. But this is what I just described as something that takes a year.
Right.
So it's like about 20 lessons, and they literally will take a year.
And you would never expect that a parent would know or remember all of those lessons. That's why Skills exists.
Exactly.
All the lessons are there. Go to skillsforautism.com. Tell them that Shannon sent you. Ask for the friends and family discount.
And then you will go to actions, which is the very, very beginning of teaching tenses. And that's in the language curriculum. And then you will go to tenses, and that's also in the language curriculum. So you could just go straight into the language curriculum, or you could do the way Skills wants you to do, which is answer questions about what your child can and cannot do. And then Skills will just generate all the lessons, not just tenses, but every area of functioning, and tell you in what order to teach them.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And I didn't have Skills when my child was going through it. I just watched the therapist do it. And I was like, in the beginning, I was like, what are they doing?
Right.
I don't get it. Like, how are we going to get there? I don't see it. I really couldn't see the big
Interesting.
picture. But but then when you watch it fall into play, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. So absolutely amazing. I'm going to move on to this next question, though, which breaks my heart. Our ABA provider reduced my child hours from insurance from 12 per week to 3 hours per week, as they want us to get off from their case. After many, many reasons. They just mentioned that they do not have enough therapists.
Oh my God.
I am concerned about insurance when we go to a new provider, how to deal with this. Thanks. I think you've answered your own question in saying that you're going to a new provider,
But you should also let your insurance company know. You should
good point.
definitely contact someone at your insurance company and say, my provider just told me the reason they're changing their recommendations is, or write it in, is because they don't have enough therapists. This is unethical. It's not okay. There is nothing okay about that. Like, you should never reduce our recommendations because you don't have enough therapists. We are always short on therapists. We hire so many therapists and we're constantly training them, but I will still prefer to keep the hours on the schedule. So if a child that is funded, it's unethical. If I want to recommend 20 hours for a child, I will keep the 20 hours even if I can only fulfill 10. And the insurance companies are not happy with me, provider, because they want me to fulfill the rest, and I will do my very best to fulfill the rest. And that's why I also tell parents, like, please don't cancel your sessions. Please help us schedule at the maximum, because these hours are vital for your child's future as well, not just now. But once you set a precedent for dropping a child to 3 hours a week, it's hard to go back up.
Yeah, it's right?
Yeah.
It makes me crazy. Okay, so Angie has written in and said, still waiting and getting services for my son. It's been 5 months and still waiting on my insurance. And she does say that we had a walkthrough with our local card facility and we can't wait to see our son grow. And I'm going to ask Angie, email me so that I can check and see what the holdup is with your insurance.
Yeah, 5 months is too long.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be 5 months, but it depends on your insurance. There have been some insurance companies that are out of control right now, but please do individually email Shannon, because I'd like to look into your situation and find out exactly what's going on.
So it's s.penrod, PENROD, at autism- that's the dash, the one in the middle, live, LIVE.com. Anybody can email me.
And can I just say also that we have a new service called our card concierge service for parents, where if anyone who is like having issues with starting at card, or not getting enough hours, or any of these types of issues that just let the concierge at card know, so that, because that's the person here whose job it is to go around to authorizations and or reports and figure out what the problem is and fix it.
But how do we get to I don't even know how to get to that person.
To the concierge? Okay, I will give you the information and we'll announce it. I believe that the person is accessible through our website.
Okay.
But
right.
we'll distribute that number, the name, everything.
Okay. Moving on to Stella says, we are still struggling to find the best academic growth environment for my 13-year-old high-functioning autism daughter. Both cyber and brick mortar have strengths challenges. So not really a question there in terms of because that's true, that's accurate. There are strengths and challenges to each one of those, but it's very individual based on the child.
It really is, yes, absolutely.
If think about what you specifically would want to ask, and please write us back, because that's so broad. Let us know what you need. Gracie says, 10-year-old son has become very aggressive at home and school. This is from YouTube. Also suddenly requires redirection for well-known routines. For example, morning, getting ready for school. It's like he's regressed. No consequences or talking behavior charts, etc. have helped. I'm out of ideas and need help with a different approach. And she says, please.
So figure out what has changed in his environment. So let's not just... the first place I would go in my head is what's changed at school, because I assume he's going to school, and I assume the aggression occurs when he's getting ready to go to school, but these are all my assumptions, I don't know. But if I'm right, then figure out what's changed in school, because whenever aggression goes up, whenever we regress, it's because the reinforcers that were in place before are either not there anymore or not enough. So it's always about balancing the reinforcers in the environment, just like us, right? So I might have no problem getting up at 6:30 every morning and doing stuff, but if I have a particularly long day, like last week, I was working till 1 a.m., right? So every day. So I was just my reinforcer level in other areas needed to go up because I was exhausted, I was overdoing it, I was not getting enough sleep. And so I started eating more. That's what we usually do, is like we'll increase reinforcers in a bad area. But that's what you need to do, is you need to figure out what reinforcers in his environment have gone away, or there might even be a punisher in his environment we don't know about.
Yeah.
So please try to find out when these behaviors occur, what has changed? Like, where is he going? Is there something aversive going on where he's going?
We actually have a story in the news where an individual who was on the spectrum was starting to be violent, and mom was trying to figure out where it was happening. And no one was being violent to him in school, but they were saying horrible things to him.
Yeah.
And so it becomes important. Something has changed, but now you're going to have to be a detective and figure it out to see what's going on exactly with your child. Somebody wrote in on Facebook and said, my daughter has very limited words and recently started memorizing lines from her favorite cartoon. Mm-hmm. She keeps repeating them. Should I continue to allow her to do this, or should I redirect her?
So that's okay. I mean, this is kind of what we call delayed echolalia. I can't answer that question because I don't know her enough. Initially, we encourage echolalia because echolalia are repeating things that we hear, echoing. It's not a bad thing. It's one of the first ways that we start production of speech. But if it gets to be too much, I wouldn't allow it to get out of control. So like, the way that I look at it is that our children have this whole vacuum of language and speech, and they're trying to use what they hear, which somehow sticks with them, whether it's through cartoons they like or music a lot of times, and they will use that to communicate. And sometimes it's out of context because it's not used appropriately, but it is their only speech. So they'll use it, you know? So basically what you have to do is when you stop that, you have to replace it with appropriate speech. So it's sort of a thing that happens together. Before, I don't know if you're in a program, I don't know what her functioning level is other than this, but the ideal situation would be, yes, you should start reducing access to all these things that become repetitive, but at the same time, you understand that it's a reinforcer for her. Watching cartoons that she likes or whatever they are is a reinforcer. So have her do a lot of appropriate speech activities and then allow her to watch those types of cartoons. And so this is another thing I want to comment on this. One of the things I learned many years ago with our kids is that when they have something to say, when they have when they use out of context speech, they will often, the only difference with other kids, let's say a 3-4-year-old, is that our kids don't introduce it appropriately. So, you're saying she's echoing it, but imagine if she introduced it by saying something like, if she had the language, she could say something like, I was watching this cartoon the other day and it was really cool because this little cat was saying meow, meow, whatever it is, right? So the introduction to the whole scene allows the person to appropriately repeat it, as opposed to just saying cat, meow, meow, or whatever it is. So when our kids get to a particular stage, we then teach them how to introduce what they want to repeat.
Yeah.
So that's the best I can do. Right now, it's like, I just don't know the child well enough to be able to tell you, but I would limit it for sure and then redirect to appropriate speech.
Okay. I wanted to make sure we got to this question because they asked it on Thursday, and I I will tell you, I asked them to do something in the interim, but so hi there, we're waiting for a diagnosis, and I do want to caution again, I said this on Thursday too, if there are little ones in the room, some of this is, not everybody likes these kinds of topics for their kids to hear, so you have had warning. We're waiting for diagnosis for my 2-year-old, but in the meantime, she has several challenging behaviors I'm trying to work on. The first one is touchy because she's constantly masturbating. We're trying to get her to rub her belly button instead, so we redirect her every time to her belly button. Do you have any other suggestions? Also, she will walk with her hands under her armpits all day if she has on a sleeveless or short sleeve shirt. She will not do it if it's a long sleeve shirt. I can't find a replacement behavior, so we're having to put her in a long sleeve to block it because it's Florida and it's hot. Do you have any suggestions? And the two things that I said for them, but that I would try to get you to answer the question, is to rule out that there isn't something medically going on with the child, that there might be a UTI or a yeast infection or something.
Very good, very important.
So to make sure that they
very
rule that out,
yes.
For the masturbating. And then I thought it was very interesting that if she's in a long sleeve shirt, that she doesn't do this. And they're all, I said, I'm just curious, does she do it in a short sleeve shirt? Is that, try it and see, is the short sleeve shirt enough to, and the fact that there are mesh shirts that are long sleeve, that are like sun protectors, but are not hot. And I'm wondering if she does it for that, just as a fact-finding thing.
Sure, but
we haven't heard back.
No, but so she's saying she will walk with her hands under her armpits all day if she's on a sleeveless or short sleeve.
Oh, so they are saying already short sleeve.
And she won't do it in
with
a long sleeve
right.
shirt. So with both of those, me trying to figure out the function of the behavior, one could be, and it's more likely for a 2-year-old that what Shannon said is true, like there could be itching going on or something that is causing her to actually do behavior that you think is masturbation. On the other hand, it could be masturbation as well, in which case that tells us that she's seeking out reinforcers, which she's not getting in other ways. Having her rub her belly button is not going to do it, because that is not going to give her either relief from itching or a positive feeling. So that's not going to work. What you need to do is block her. First of all, make sure medically that there's nothing else going on, and we deal with it if it's some sort of infection. If it is actually masturbation in process, you block it at this point. But this means that you now have to give her other very pleasant types of experiences. With our kids, what we do, and 2 is very young, that's why I'm wondering if it's masturbation. It doesn't usually happen with girls at 2. That's unusual. Usually it happens much later with girls and maybe 3 or so with boys. So what I would say is you want to make sure first the medical issues, then secondly you would block it. Obviously you can't block it at night, that's fine, it doesn't matter because it's in the privacy of her own room and so on. But essentially during the day you will do activities that will keep her hands occupied and doing other positively reinforcing types of activities. Increase her reinforcers where you can. This is called non-contingent reinforcement. Increase her reinforcers. The reason is that you're just trying to balance out her reinforcers in the course of the day. Now, with the issue of the shirts thing, I'm not sure what she's getting from this. It could be, if she's not doing it with long sleeve, then more likely it's not the feeling of the arms, but it is the feeling of the skin-to-skin contact. So that might be something where you can just teach her to have other forms of skin-to-skin contact. Find out what the function is. So what was she getting out of it? Was she making a noise, perhaps, when she did this? Is she getting the skin-to-skin texture? What is it that she was achieving by doing that? Which you're getting there because you've already realized that it's not like the muscles, because then she would still do it. So figure out what that is and then replace it with something that gives the same sensory input but isn't as odd looking, I suppose. Okay. Now, this is you have a sensory child. You have a child who has a lot of sensory input issues. So when you do ABA, which I hope you're doing an intensive ABA program, she's 2, this is when you should be doing many, many, many hours.
And they're waiting to get the diagnosis.
Okay. Then I think what you need to do is make sure that the ABA providers are aware that she's going to need a lot of sensory types of reinforcers, and she's going to need sensory integration type activities that will help regulate her up and down moods and activities.
And there's a lot of things you can do for everybody while you're waiting to get a diagnosis. Skills for Autism, good place to go. But I also have to say, for the sensory-seeking kids, one of my favorite resources is the Pocket OT, Kara Kaczynski. She has little books that have on each page an activity you can do with your kids for sensory seekers. I love her book. So go to thepocketot.com and check out some of the things. She has a lot of free resources on her website.